Okay, hello. So that was Kalap, the place where I work, and I love to show it off. I mean, that's my office. So that's where I sit and work. Um, so it all started, one day when I went up there on a trek. I know this village for a few years, but this was the year 2013, and time had literally stood still there. Uh, we still don't have a road. Um, there was no access to real-time communications, and when I looked at it, you know, I only saw one thing: opportunity and an opportunity to create more opportunity. That's it. Nothing more than that. Uh, I was a photojournalist. I was a full-time photojournalist. I worked with newspapers all my career. And in 2010, I made a conscious decision to quit. So I moved out of the industry, and I had traveled all across India, covered a variety of issues, and wrote a lot of stories. So I somehow wanted to rework my life on a new set of fundamentals. Uh, I went through a process of seeing what I need and what I want, and I finally came down to two essentials. And it was very simple. I realized that I need to build my life around access to clean air and water. It was a period of cutting down what you need and what you want, and then I figured out that we go about our life completely backwards, where we go after everything, and in the end We go looking for clean air and water. And I wanted to start from the other way around. So I realized that I would find this only in rural India. And when I reached Kalap, uh, I realized that, okay, the choice is automatic and I'm going to live here and work here. So the challenge now was that once I reached Kalap was, how do I use the skills that I have to have a transformative effect on the village? And how finally it's going to make me earn a living as an entrepreneur? Nothing else. And I had to look at what I had to offer. And my primary skill, my core competency has been storytelling. So I just started out documenting life in the village and the story of the people who live there. And through that, one thing led to another. And the stories led to formation of this non-profit that I run now called Kalap Trust, where I call myself the Chief Opportunity Officer and nothing else. We do not function like a normal NGO. We, from the start, I established a vision that we're going to be a startup incubator for this village and also villages around us. And this is what we're going to do. That how can we use skills to transform this place? And my skill was that, hey, I can go out and communicate the story of this village. And through that, I can facilitate through a framework of getting other people who have skills to come and work with the community. I can be an interface with the community and I can ensure that everybody understands each other. In brief and simply, that is the story of what I'm doing at Kalap. It's nothing extraordinary, that's it. Now, my journey over the last 2.5 years has made me realize that, and ask a question. Can communities support entrepreneurs? Now, it's become a cause that's very dear to me. I call myself today an evangelist for ruralization. By ruralization, I mean go back, live in the villages. Every trend that you see, every data that you see points towards increasing urbanization. Data says that by 2040, half of India's population is going to be living in its cities. I look at it as opportunity. This migration is creating a vacuum, and that vacuum is an opportunity for you to go innovate and make a difference. Now, let me give you an example of what you can do. I live and work in a region that's home to about 10,000 people. All right? We do not have access to a single quality doctor or a dentist. Okay, now you can tell me, okay, doctors are scarce everywhere. It's a very specialized talent. Fair enough. I grant you that. But if I apply the same yardstick to other trades and skills, a plumber, a mason, a carpenter, the scenario is the same. The old adage was that you can't earn money in a rural area. I have been working in rural India for the last almost a decade. And I've steadily found that this gap has been consistently narrowing to an extent that today there are some services, if you offer in a rural area, it is currently more monetarily lucrative than offering the same service in an urban area. And the best part is you have no competition at all. It's a serious thing. And if you ask me, I mean, it's not too late, it's never late to learn a little bit of carpentry or a little bit of electrical work and be the jack of all trades. And, we come across many such success stories. I'm wearing one of that on my foot right now. It's a very interesting gentleman whom I met last year. He was again an engineer. I mean, he had been an engineer for about a decade. And then one day, he just decided to become a cobbler. He just decided to become a cobbler. He wanted to learn to make shoes. So he set up a shoe factory in a place which has no history of leather work. He learned, making shoes by himself. And today he employs an entire team of people making these beautiful handmade sandals and shoes. And all you have to do is send him an outline of your foot on a piece of A4 paper, pay him the money, and he sends you the shoe. And guess what it's called? My Foot. You can go Google it. It's the initiative is called My Foot. It's myfoot.in. But the thing that I'm trying to tell you here is that it's not just about going to a rural area and becoming a cobbler or a carpenter or a plumber. There's a certain set of skills that we have developed as urbanites, which can make us transform something as simple as a basic trade as this into something bigger, which is what Manmat Shetty has done with these shoes that I'm wearing today. That it is sad that, when we talk about, you guys must have heard of this term called the brain drain, where people from India went to work in Europe and America. We lost our IIT graduates, our doctors, everybody. In the last 20 years, we have enjoyed a lot of economic prosperity in India, but at what cost? In rural areas, skilled and enterprising people have moved away in droves. It has literally gutted rural areas. And the people who are left behind have no avenues to learn, reskill, or upskill themselves. This is where I continue to stress always that you, as an urbanite, a person with a certain amount of skills, can go and play a catalyst. You can be the bridge. Because for people currently in rural areas, I mean, we talk about a lot of government programs, private sector programs, everything. But the problem is the learning curve is becoming quite steep. That by the time a person in a village learns something, the world has already moved on beyond that. And the only way you can bridge that is by having these people, these ruralizers, who can go back, put their foot in and shorten the learning curve for them. This is uh, a strange thing that you'll find that earlier in rural India, the guy who was most respected was a doctor. Because when something is wrong with you and your life is at risk, you need somebody to save your life. But today we have ambulances, we have a 108 service. You can just dial 108 and they'll get you to the nearest hospital. But where does a guy in a village go find an entrepreneur? Where do you go find this guy who's going to come and innovate in your village? You can't find him anywhere. That's why you'll find that, communities have a great hunger to work with people who create opportunity. I started out in this village training people as mountain guides. I started out with one guy, a father of 3 children. Okay, I said, one day I told him that, hey, why not I train you as a mountain guide? Today, 2.5 years down the line, I'm training 10 people. I started working with one weaver to make some basic woolen stuff, Today, I'm working with 35 weavers. Uttarakhand has a state bird. Uttarakhand has a state animal. But the national or state dish of Uttarakhand, you wouldn't believe, is chow mein, literally. And I took pride in eating the local food. Whenever anybody visited from the outside, like our tourists, I said, no, we're going to serve them only the local food. Now, this one aim was to promote the local cuisine. The other one for me was to tell the villagers that, hey, there is a market for your healthy produce. We are working on that now. And we're working in one village right now. I have 5 villages waiting in queue telling me that, hey, why don't you come and do the same thing in our village? That's in 2 years. That's quite an incubation period for me. Now, the interesting thing is that why I want these people to go from cities to work in rural areas is that we often talk about an urban-rural dialogue or rural-urban dialogue. Rural India is going through a huge tumultuous change right now. I mean, I call it the light bulb to Sunny Leone effect, where a village that doesn't have a light bulb suddenly gets access to a smartphone through which you can get access to Sunny Leone, which is happening to my village right now. It's 2 weeks since we got a mobile tower that we can access from our village. So we don't have a light bulb yet, but you can access the internet. So now this is a quiet place. Before this happened, I used to hardly know if the country existed or not when I went there. And suddenly you have all this noise flooding the place. Now, who is going to tell this community what to listen out of this noise that has suddenly come there? This is where, again, you can play a little bit of you can do a hand holding, I mean, just be with the community and tell them, that, hey, this is what is happening and how do you help this community interpret the change that's happening around them? And along the way, I mean, if you ask me personally, information exchange is always 2 ways. We have this little thing in the village where you do not pick up anything that isn't yours. It's a very simple, unwritten rule that if you see some wood that has been cut and left behind in the forest, or grass, you do not pick it up because it's not yours. If you see some tools or something that's left behind, you don't pick it up because it's not yours. If somebody doesn't have food, they come and ask you for food, you give them food without expecting it in return. Now, this is a beautiful thing. I mean, what is it called? It's called trust. What keeps a community together? That's trust. For me, that has been a very, very humble learning experience, in the sense that what are we losing today? It is that. And I can trace a lot of problems that we see around us to, little erosion of trust everywhere. Now, this whole thing of going into rural areas is like it's a very idealistic thing that I'm painting over here, but what we need is something very positive and which is enabling on the ground that can help you to go make this leap. And this is what is missing. Today you want to develop a mobile app, you can find an angel investor for that. All right. A lot of people are willing to throw some money just on a gamble to develop a mobile app. But it's not the case with social projects. I think the earlier slideshow he was telling about vetting and this and that. Yeah, it's as difficult as that. And I personally believe that one of the things that I'm going to start working on in the next year is that you need people with a devil may care attitude to fund social projects. You actually need not an angel fund, but you need a devil fund. Because there's a part of the story that I have left out of this, is the whole personal sacrifice and the hardship part of it. I sum it up in a very simple thing, that what do you do when you have 97 rupees in your bank account and you can't pull it out of the ATM? I've seen it too many times for me to even care about it now. But this is a very, very big leap, and it can psychologically break a lot of people and not allow them to continue with their mission, and also not allow them to make the leap. And so it's a very big conundrum, and yeah, I want to make a step to solve that. I keep telling people that in India we have this famous thing called Narega. I actually want to rename it as National Rural Entrepreneur Guarantee Scheme, because that is exactly what we need in this country. See, it's a very deep personal thing. Like we had an earlier talk by Mr. Armugam. He was discussing the same thing, that how do you make this choice? I only say that it's like jumping into the deep end of a pool without knowing how to swim. Some of us have managed it. We've managed to claw our way back to the top. My mission over the next few years is to ensure that I give people a life jacket. Thank you.